think that people in this country want somebody who is going to be honest with them, who's going to tell them the truth, and who's going to do what he thinks is right every single time. And it's not a question of being pig-headed. It's not a question of being unreasonable. It's a question of knowing that we have standards and we keep them. It's a question of, are we going to follow our Constitution or not? There's no exception to the Constitution. It's not like we follow our Constitution except for when we're at war. That's not the way it's supposed to be. And we find ourselves going back afterwards and then writing letters of apology for Japanese internment camps. But what we need to do is be proactive and not do the wrong thing in the first place. That's why I've consistently spoken out against torture. It's wrong. I've consistently spoken out that terrorists should be treated as the common criminals they are. We have a Constitution that talks about our values. Those values mean something to me. They do. I believe that we should have fair trials. I believe it not just because it's in our Constitution, because I believe it's the right thing to do.
Civilian or military?
I am willing to go with a military trial done under the UCMJ. Traditionally, if you've had somebody captured outside the United States who had committed a crime, he was tried in a military tribunal under the Uniform Code of Military Justice. If you have somebody who is on the battlefield committing rape and torture, then that's illegal, and you try them for their crime under the UCMJ, where they have the right to a lawyer, they have the right to remain silent, they have all the other rights enumerated in the Constitution. There's a fiction out there that somehow by trying people in a military tribunal, they don't have constitutional rights. That is not true. It's not true because I say it's not true. It's not true because the Constitution and our Declaration of Independence says it's not true. I believe in the words that are in those documents. I believe in the values that are in those documents. And when they say all men are created equal, they meant that. They didn't say all U.S. citizens are created equal. And when they said they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, they didn't say they are endowed by our Constitution with certain inalienable rights if they're only a citizen. They say all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. That's what our Declaration of Independence says. That's what our Constitution says. And it's not just Andrew Duck who thinks that. It's the United States Supreme Court when they ruled in Hamdan versus the U.S. that habeas corpus applied to the prisoners at Guantanamo. And what's going to happen with the military tribunals that they have set up under the Military Commissions Act is you're going to have lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit where they find out that it's not constitutional to deny people the right to confront witnesses. We have that in our Constitution because it's the right thing. That's what we believe. Don't you think that if somebody accuses you of a crime, or accuses anyone of a crime, that that person should have the right to go back and question that person and say, what makes you think I did that? That's what we do. That's our values. That's what our Constitution is. There aren't, and once again, there aren't exceptions. It's not just when it feels good that we follow our Constitution. We follow our Constitution because those are the values that we have. And those are the values I think every American shares. I don't think we need to change our Constitution and start permitting torture. I don't think we need to change our Constitution and permit people to be held without a trial. I don't think so. And as somebody who dedicated his life to defending this country, I never asked for additional tools because we don't need them. And as somebody who dedicated 20 years of his life, who has served in hostile fire zones, who has served in combat, who has put his life on the line to defend the Constitution of the United States, that's how much it matters. What I'm saying right now is my personal opinion of me as an individual U.S. citizen. It is my personal opinion that under the Bush administration, there was a deliberate attempt to fabricate intelligence, and that people knowingly and willfully deceived, sought to encourage others to deceive, and fabricated intelligence to justify a predetermined decision, and that action, which frankly appears to have been masterminded in Dick Cheney's office, has caused irreparable harm to our standing in the world. We had to overcome a huge cultural hurdle in order to bring what previously had been a rule of law that was based primarily on the testimony of one individual versus another. And when we tried to bring scientific and forensic evidence in, we were rebuffed by the fact that we had fabricated intelligence in the past. They knew we had fabricated that intelligence, and they then suspected everything that we ever did was fabricated. That sort of harm has taken us years to begin to overcome, and we still haven't fully overcome it. I believe that those decision makers in Washington are more of a threat to our national security, or were more of a threat to our national security, than the Al-Qaeda personnel that we were actively targeting out on the battlefield, because they did more harm to us than anyone else. My personal opinion, having served in Iraq and having attempted to follow the orders that were given to us and then been countermanded while we were in the process of following those orders, it became clear to me that the only way I could explain that pattern of behavior was that people were interested in making money. They were not interested in regime change in Iraq and bringing democracy to Iraq. They were interested in making money. That is a situation which is unacceptable. I believe that we have people that put their personal gain above our national interest. I believe that that is inappropriate. And I will tell you that if I am elected to Congress, I know that while I have a great deal of respect for President Obama, and he says he's not interested in relitigating the past, I would like it to be litigated the first time. I believe that there are people who committed crimes. I believe that there are people who profiteered off of the wars that we have been engaged in over the last 8 years, and I believe that my friends and colleagues are dead because somebody wanted to make a buck. And do I want someone held accountable? Yes. Do I have a prejudgment of who should be held accountable? I have suspicions, but I believe what we need is a thorough investigation and let the facts lead where they may. So when we talk about a misallocation of resources, it had already been determined, just a matter of weeks after 9/11, that we were going to pull our vital, scarce intelligence assets away from those people who had attacked our country so that we could go and engage in combat in Iraq. In my mind, that was the wrong decision. I was a soldier. I did exactly what I was told to do. I recognize the fact that the military serves the civilian commanders, and if that was the decision that had been made by the folks in Washington, that's what we do. I spent the vast majority of the 16 months that I was in command of Delta Company training them to go to Iraq. I was transferred to CFLIC headquarters just prior to the transfer, just as we were moving in, just prior to moving into Iraq. But I am proud to say, of the 108 soldiers who were in Delta Company of 103rd MI, they deployed to combat in Iraq, and every single one of those 108 soldiers came back alive.